So welcome to Stories for Healing. Now, as you probably know, if you're here, this is a project that started at the end of October. And it's been running now for just about 3 months. When I first started Stories for Healing, it was a very dark time for many of us. And not that there's all that much more light now, there is certainly some, but these are dark and difficult times. And back at the end of October, it was actually Halloween. I decided that I needed to do something about that. And in order to do, what could I do? Well, being a storyteller and being a transformational storyteller, in other words, someone who promotes healing and change, got to tell stories. My first idea was to tell a couple stories a day, every day of the week, 7 days a week, and get us through the United States election. And fortunately, some of my dearest friends, including Maya, who's online now, said, well, why should you do that all yourself? A lot of storytellers would like to do that. It was kind of those, aha, of course, moments. So I reached out and quickly, people started signing up. And before you know it, there was just a tremendous amount of response to the program. We started getting 20, 30 views a day, and then hundreds of views a day. And before much longer, we were up to 1,000 views a day. Now, this is not a place where I'm promoting a product or trying to make any money. This was just obviously filling a need that people were feeling. And the stories were coming from around the world. They were literally around the world, every continent except Australia, except Antarctica. So the stories continued. Now, they continued for a couple of almost 3 weeks at that pace, 2 stories a day, 7 days a week. And that got to be a bit burdensome. But the press for more stories and storytellers really being anxious to tell stories continued. And so scaled back a little bit and turned it into one story a day on weekdays. And still we've been going. And there's been some weeks where we've had 2,000 views a day of this thing. Um, and I wondered to myself, how long will this go on? you know, because it's not without effort that it happens, and it's not actually without money that it happens. But that was okay because it really did seem to be meeting a good need. Now, what I've noticed is a couple of things. One is there are always some people who are skeptical. When you say, I want to talk about healing or I want to talk about transformation, especially in these very divisive times, there are people who will say, well, it's not the right time for healing. Healing to them often means sitting down, immediately forgiving everybody for anything they might have ever done and just pushing it all under the rug and moving forward as if nothing had happened. And honestly, that's not healing. That's like saying, I've got a broken bone and the bone is piercing through the skin. Here's a Band-Aid for you. It doesn't address anything. What healing really involves is a deep look at ourselves first, to say, how am I contributing to this? Because you know what? We all are. How am I contributing to this? And what do I need to become aware of in myself if I'm going to be able to allow healing to take place? I can't heal you. I can make it possible for you to heal yourself, but I can't heal you. I can only heal myself. That's a secret, by the way, that we as storytellers know, that when we tell these stories of healing or transformation, we are healing ourselves. We're taking a step in that direction. We are working for change within ourselves. And that's exactly what's been going on. Literally, I've had, I think, 75, if not more, storytellers contributing stories. We have well over 100 stories that have been told. So first thing, when I talk about healing and when I talk about transformation, I'm not talking about sitting around and just smiling at each other and pretending that nothing bad has happened. No, in order for anything to really change, each of us has to be able to go in and look at those dark sides of our own cavernous selves and say, what have I been doing and how am I benefiting from this and how might I be contributing to it in ways I don't intend or would ever want to do, but still nonetheless. So that's an important thing about healing. And another important thing, well, I'll save the other important thing till after I tell a story, because today is the day that I think is going to be the last day of this run of Stories for Healing. It's not the end of Stories for Healing in any broad sense, and I have been approached by a lot of people with other ideas about how to carry this on. But I do want to basically announce that I'm going to take this opportunity to create the other bookend for this series. The first was just before the election day, and this will be just after Inauguration Day. And I know that for many of you who are not coming from this country, from the United States, you have other issues to worry about. And believe me, I fully appreciate that. But for me and for many of the viewers here, this is a milestone. It's not the end of the path by any stretch. And those of us who are aware of all the problems that have been going on know that this isn't just solved by putting a new president behind the Oval Office or into the Oval Office. And so with that in mind, I really want to tell a story today. And I really want to tell a story that I think befits the challenge that we face. This is a story about the difficult healing that needs to be done. And it's a story I want to share with you at length. This is a traditional story, and if you notice my kippah, by the way, this is my teacher's kippah, Yitzhak Buxbaum of blessed memory, who recently passed away, gave this to me as part of my ordination. And so I wear it for him in this moment as well. So this story is from the Jewish tradition. And as it happens, as they often are with me, this is a story that involves the Baal Shem Tov. And for those of you not familiar with the Baal Shem Tov was a great mystic. He lived a couple centuries ago in Eastern Europe, and he promoted an idea that at the time was quite unpopular amongst the elite of the Jewish circles, and that was that it didn't matter so much what you knew, and it certainly didn't matter so much how much money you had or what your social status was, that anybody could be close to God. And all they had to do was yearn for it, genuinely yearn for it. And many, many, many of his stories involved these people who were very simple people and only knew how to express their open hearts to the Eternal One. And in that way, were able to actually have some commerce, some connection to the divine. So that's who this amazing man was, the Baal Shem Tov, an actual character, an actual living person at the time. And this story is a little odd because it involves someone who is not poor as the main character. And so imagine yourself, if you will, it's evening. You're in a small, simple house, the Baal Shem Tov's house in Medzebush. And evening is starting to fall. Imagine yourself in this house now, a fly on the wall. You can see the Baal Shem Tov sitting behind his desk, two comfortable chairs across from him, and he's studying. And he hears on the road just outside his window the arrival of a carriage. Now, only the wealthy had carriages. The wealthy and some very poor rabbis. Um, but this carriage arrives, comes to a screeching halt. The door opens and shuts, and steps approach the house. There's a knock on the door. It's opened, and the steps continue in hurriedly. The door to the office flies open, and in walks this wealthy man. This wealthy man who's very distraught. And he's carrying in his hand a bag, a purse. Perhaps it's coins, perhaps it's jewels. Obviously, it has some great value. And he looks to the Baal Shem Tov and he says, I've heard you do great things. I know people come to you with requests for favors or healing or potions. I don't have such a request. Slams the bag down on the Baal Shem Tov's desk. Says, here, put this to some good use. And he turns to leave. The Baal Shem Tov, surprised, friend, please, you've come all this way. You've given me this gift. Please. There must be something you want. The man looks at him. I don't think there's anything you have that I want. Baal Shem Tov says, nothing? And for this you leave me this bag? No, nothing. And he turns to leave, and the Baal Shem Tov stands up from his desk and comes around the side. Friend, please. At least, let me tell you a story. The man sits down, more collapses into the chair, and the Baal Shem Tov comes around and takes up the chair beside him and begins his story. A long time ago, there were two young boys. These were two young boys, Shlomo and Yitzhak. And they grew up on neighboring farms, dirt poor. Farms close enough that they could actually play together. And so they did. The only son of these two families. They would meet at the little stream that bordered their two farms and play. Occasionally at first, and then every day. And each of them, being the only son, the only child of their family, grew close to the other. And they grew closer and closer. They started to think of themselves as brothers. They would tumble in the dust. They would splash each other in the stream, screaming and yelling and having a wonderful time. Often one would eat with the other's family. Until one day, and no one can recall whether it was Shlomo or Yitzhak who had the idea first. They decided that they would become blood brothers in the way that young boys often do. And so they took a sharp rock, each of them, and made a cut on their palm and squeezed it until just a little trickle of blood began to flow, and they clasped their hands together and swore an oath. They swore an oath that they would share everything. Whatever was good that happened to the other, to one, they would share with the other. Whatever was bad would be shared. They were blood brothers on holy oath, and their spirits soared. And so it was. As each of them started to grow into manhood, they stayed that close. They really had a special bond. Now, as they grew even older and as it time for them to work and start a family, they took two different paths. Shlomo, well, he decided he would stay home and run the family farm and make his fortune by simply working the land. Yitzhak, though, he longed for the city. And he told his parents that he would be successful enough at becoming a merchant, that he would support them in ways that were sufficient. And so he left for the town, and Shlomo stayed home. And for a few years, that's how it went. The farm of Shlomo's prospered, and Yitzhak's business prospered. And when each of their parents passed on, they were each there to support the other. Shlomo, now living in the family farm with his family, and Yitzhak, now in the town, single, running a successful business. And the years turned. And the wheel of fate turned. And the fortunes for Yitzhak, they plummeted. His business collapsed. His customers left him. No one knows why. But he came to Shlomo and he said, Shlomo, my brother, I'm bereft. I have no business. I have no money. I have no place to live. And Shlomo said, Yitzhak, why do you need to even tell me? Of course, come, live with me. My good fortune is yours. Your bad fortune is mine. And so Yitzhak moved in. And Shlomo cared for him, his broken spirit, helped him financially. And slowly, a year went by, 2 years went by. And Yitzhak was now ready to return to the business world. And so with the blessings of Shlomo and his wife and his children, he left. And this time moved to an even bigger town and started an even more successful business. And the years went by, and the wheel of fate turned again. And this time, it was Shlomo who was struck. Some great plague took his wife and children, wiped out his farm. His loss cut deep into his soul. And the only thing he could hold on to was knowing that his brother Yitzhak would support him. And so Weeping with a heavy heart, he made his way on foot to that large city so far away. And after 3, maybe 4 days, he arrives and asks people, "Do you know Yitzhak the merchant?" "Oh, Yitzhak the merchant, yes, that fine house over there, that's his." And so with new light and new hope in his heart, he makes his way to the home of his blood brother, saying to himself, "There is hope. I can make this. It will work." He gets to the gate of the estate, and the guards see him, now dirty and dusty with torn clothes and ragged hair. "Go away." "No, no, I'm the brother of your master. Please let me in." "Brother of my master? I've never heard of such thing." "No, tell him Shlomo is here. Shlomo is here. Of course he will let me in." The guard goes in and comes out a few moments later, begrudgingly open the gate, and out walks Shlomo, dressed in fine clothes. He meets Yitzhak at the gate, doesn't invite him in. "Ah, Shlomo, my brother, here you are." "Oh, Yitzhak, I can't tell you what's happened. My wife, my family, I can imagine." He reaches into his purse and he pulls out a few coins. Says, "This is the best that I can do for you. These are hard times for me too." "But Yitzhak, I, I wish I could do more. Hopefully this will find you a place to stay." And he turned his back and closed the gate. Shlomo was stunned. How could this be? This vow they had made. He was sure it must be a bad day, so he entreated the guard to let him in one more time, to just let him speak to him. And the guard said, "No, you've been dismissed." Yitzhak crossed to the other side of the street and sat down. He would wait. Surely, Shlomo crossed. Surely Yitzhak would come out. But he didn't. Carriages came and went, and if Yitzhak left or arrived in one of them, Shlomo never saw him. He sat there in the rain and the cold. Nothing. He spent the few coins that he had first on food, but they soon ran out. And every now and then he would make another plea for entry, but the answer was always the same. At length, Shlomo developed a cough, and it sunk deep in his chest, surrounding his broken heart. He knew he would not survive. And in his heart, he could not bring shame upon his brother, because he still believed in some way that his brother cared for him, that there was just something terribly wrong with his life. And so Shlomo left, and he headed out into the fields, where he lay down and he died. Now, as fate would have it, and fate does have its way, in that same moment that Shlomo died, destitute in the fields, Yitzhak died. And they were both called before the heavenly court at the same time. And they stood there waiting for the pronouncement of the tribunal. And the assembled angels said, "This is no challenge at all. Shlomo, you honored your vow to Yitzhak. You saved his life. You restored his life. For that, heaven. And you, Yitzhak, you broke your vow. You took advantage of your brother, and it cost him his life. The answer is simple: Gehenna, hell." And you would think that would be it. But Shlomo raised his voice and said, "I refuse." The angels looked at each other. "What do you mean you refuse?" "I refuse. We made a vow. What's good befalls one of us befalls the other. What evil befalls one of us befalls the other. I will not go to heaven unless my brother accompanies me. And if you will not allow him to accompany me, then I will accompany him to hell." The angels, "This is wrong. You can't go to hell. You've done everything that everyone would ever ask for and more, even now. And you can't go to heaven. You've killed your own brother." "Still, I refuse," cried Shlomo. "You cannot make me break my vow. It's a holy vow I took, an oath I made. You do not have the power to break it." The angels didn't know what to do. They went to God, the Holy One, and said, "What do we do? How do we solve this?" And the Holy One whispered, and they nodded, and they understood. And they came back to the two, and they said, "The Holy One has issued a decree, and it may not be altered. You, Shlomo, you shall be born back into the world as a poor, sickly, destitute child. And you, Yitzhak, you shall be born into the world rich and wealthy, healthy and well cared for. Neither of you shall remember any of this, and you will be born miles apart. But you will encounter each other at some point in your lives. And when you do, Yitzhak, what you do for your blood brother in that moment will determine your fate. If you treat him kindly, if you offer him some relief, then your vow shall be honored, and you shall ascend to heaven with your blood brother. But Shlomo, know this: If he does not, you will still go to heaven, but he will not accompany you. That's it. That's all there is. And so it came to pass that soon after, a young boy was born into extreme poverty, and another, worlds away, was born into wealth and health. And this poor boy suffered greatly throughout his life, barely making it to adulthood, while the other ascended and became even wealthier than you or I could imagine. And the only thing that either of them could recall was that Shlomo felt a yearning to go to the place where this reincarnation of Yitzhak lived. Didn't know why, didn't know anything else except he felt this tremendous yearning. And so years later, he was able to get himself there. And the closer he got to the castle that was the new Yitzhak's, the greater his yearning became. And as he grew closer and closer, he felt this powerful urge. He had to meet the master of this castle. He got to the gate and the guards pushed him away. But he persisted. He said, I cannot tell you why, but you must tell your master that it's a matter of life and death. He has to see me. He was so compelling with his cry that one of the guards went up the several flights of stairs to the new Yitzhak's office, but came down by himself, saying, he has no need of any beggar. So, somehow, Shlomo summoned up strength and made his way past the guards and up the stairs and burst into Yitzhak's room. Yitzhak looked at him, a complete stranger in filth and stinking, ridden with disease and sores. And Shlomo said, I do not know you. I do not know you, but I know in my heart that you must give me just a coin, just a single coin. It's a matter of life and death. Please, you must believe me. And he came at Shlomo. And Shlomo was so repulsed by this filthy, diseased body that he pushed him. And he fell down the stairs. And he died. The man in the Baal Shem Tov's office burst out. How did you know? How did you know? Is what you say true? Am I condemned? It was bad enough that I killed this man. Is there no hope for me? The Baal Shem Tov looked at him. The bag of coins. He said, I don't know. I don't know what you can do. but I do know what you can try. Take your wealth. Take all of your wealth to whatever you need to lead a better life now. And perhaps the Holy One, in the compassion that is eternal, will find it for you. My friends, there's a lot of pain in this world. There's a lot of pain, and each of us holds some measure of responsibility for it. We can't imagine that simply saying, I'm sorry, is enough to invoke the compassion of the Eternal One. And yet, as our tradition teaches, the gates are always open. The gates are always open. And so, as we head into this new path, this new era, as we pass one milestone, but look at the road that extends for generations before us, we have to ask ourselves, what can I do? What have I done? How can I repair the breaches in this world to the best of my ability? You know, Pirkei Avot says, yours is not to finish the job, but neither are you free from beginning it. Today, friends, however we've begun before, it's time to begin again, and every day to begin again. And trust that when we make a true self-examination of what we do and are ready to look at the ways in which we may injure others, however unintentionally, that healing can begin. And so it's with this prayer for healing. Misha Berach, Imotenu. Heal us, Eternal One. And let us grow together as a community, a world family, with differences that are to be treasured, not feared. Come join me. It's a wonderfully difficult but glorious path to follow. Thank you.